Arganissima, New York. Your exotic skin, hair, and beauty source, and your one-stop shop for all your natural and organic skin and hair care, featuring authentic organic Moroccan oil and prickly pear seed oil and much more. Bringing you only the best, straight from the source and proudly produced in the USA. So what are you waiting for? Shop today at www.arganissima.com. Arganissima, New York. Your beauty is our duty.
And we're live.
Hey, 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 you know me. It's Dr. Cheryl BryantBruce, MD, the celebrity doc, and I am here with my co-host, Hisham Ellen Mati, Hurricane H. We're here for another episode of Chatters That Matters. Let's talk about it. Our show is here to educate, inform, and entertain you. This is our second live episode, so support us by sending the link to all of your friends. You can call in and you can text us and join in the chatter on these episodes. So please don't just sit there and look at us. We want you to participate. We have an exciting guest again. All of our guests are exciting. Come on now. But we have a really fun guest today. Her name is Gloria Sanders Williams, also known as Desire for Fire.
Yes.
Now, Gloria is big fun, and she's definitely entertaining because her genre is writing. She's an author. She is a spoken word artist extraordinaire, and she hails from none other than Las Vegas, Nevada. But that's not where she's from. She's a Bay Area girl, San Francisco area. So Gloria, she saw a niche that was not filled, and that was in the Black fantasy genre. There wasn't anybody out there really doing it. So Gloria has put out several books, and she is going to tell us about a series that she has going. Actually, she has a couple of different series. And in the Black fantasy genre, she even writes in the erotica section, which is another area that hasn't much been tapped in the Black writing arena. And you have to remember, this is Black History Month. So what a great time to bring on a Black author extraordinaire. With no further ado, I want to introduce you to Gloria Sanders and let her tell her story about how she became who she is, the phenomenal writer that she is.
Thank you so much, Dr. Cheryl, Hurricane H. I really appreciate this opportunity. More than anything, I just want to say hello to everybody. Thank you for joining. It's just an amazing outlet for us as writers to be able to introduce what we do, what we love to do, and our art, why we write in per se. I started off very young. I was around 16 years old. I was growing up in San Francisco, and I was handed a book that was in the fantasy genre, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. Now, they made a movie out of that. They had like a 7-book series, and I was totally engrossed in it, which started my love for that particular genre. And I was such an avid reader. I was the nerd of all nerds. I went to Low out of San Francisco, so we were considered nerds back then. But I grew up not only reading, but wanting to express myself. Had a lot of things going on, and we wanted to tie that in sort of into how young people associate with how they're interacting with the world and coping skills per se. But one of my teachers said, wow, you make such a great writer. She inspired me. She wanted me to keep writing. And I started off with poetry and short stories. And then when I came to Vegas, it went in a little bit deeper where I had this story in 1999 with 99 pages. And I was like, wow, this is a sign, and I wanted to write that book. I wanted to bring more characters of color that I was noticing because I was such an avid fan of the genre of fantasy. Wasn't a lot of Black characters, actually none. If you mentioned Black, it was either a Black elf or something like that, if you know the world of fantasy. So there was no one like me or looked like me in that world that I wanted to build. So I said, well, I create it myself. There are a lot of art that they're still trying to do that more so, but I was able to bring into fruition my stories and based on my love of David Eddings and Terry Brooks, and these are just authors that influenced me, along with The Lion, the Witch, and the Road Trouble. Um, I started off in putting it down, and those floppy disks that you have back way back in 1999. So I looked at it and
Mhm.
it said Kyandra 19, and I opened it up and it said 1999, and it had 99 pages. I said, "Oh, this is a sign. This has to be a sign." So I was trying to do queries because, as a world of you Google and you find out, well, what you can do to get your writing out there. And a lot of publishing companies says, yeah, we'll publish your book. But I sent my story to a publishing house in Maryland. So that was out near you, right, Hurricane? Maryland's fairly close. And they did such a crappy job that I fought for 2 years to get it back to where I could own my own story. But I finally did. And I says, well, I'm going to learn how to do this myself. So as an indie author, which is what we're called when we independently publish our own works, I just learned the ropes. And from that history of trying to create my stories of genre, I actually published, I'm at number 9 right now. So I started off with this fantasy series of from good versus evil, because that always captures you no matter what. In any genre, you have a story to tell when it's good versus evil. So, and I think that's why sword and fantasy and all that really got me, because it hits home, as even in the real world and God fearing, and there is good and there is evil, and then what stories you can tell based on that. But I wanted to bring my Black characters and my heroines into it, because there's not a lot of heroes out there. So does the world need another hero? And I say, hell yeah, they need another hero. So I started creating all these female protagonists who can fight not only good, but sometimes they have to face the evil inside of them and try to,
Right.
balance that, because everybody has bad and everybody has good. And so my characters are not always pristine. They do have some flaws, because as humans, we flaw. No one is infallible. They all have to fight through what makes them the best that they can be. And most stories that are hero stories is you start off being this person who runs from everything or doesn't really want to stand up to who you really can be. And that hero in you has to come out in order to maybe not motivate you, but motivate something that connects you to whatever it is, whether it's saving the world or saving your loved one or saving yourself. And that's
Okay,
kind of how.
let's talk about that. Let's stop
Mhm.
here and talk about that. So you're talking about how the heroes that you create they're flawed
Yes.
and they're running from things, they're battling things, they're finding their own strength. How is this telling your story? Because every writer has a why story. So how are your characters telling your story?
I really feel that maybe a lot of it is like who I want to really express the Black caricature as a female, how, you know, we're set in a construct, but we really shouldn't be. That anybody that looks at my characters can say, no, that's just not a strong Black woman, but that is a strong female character. And
Yes.
and from that, for me, is I used to hide a lot in terms of behind books, even per se, right? I didn't
Hmm.
have that voice. And able to create these strong characters, you really have to delve down and say, well, what are some of your flaws? What are some of the things you wish you could face on your own? I went through when I was growing up. My father passed when I was 5, so I didn't really know him. But my mother remarried when she was 9 and from Kansas City, Missouri. She brought us to San Francisco, California. So I grew up the majority of my life in that Bay Area, and you get a lot of cultural mix and being able to fit in versus
Mhm.
not fitting in. You feel more at home in some places, but you realize that you're still this individual, that has to still learn to grow with all these cultural differences around you. But the
Right.
school I went to kind of really released that pressure where I wasn't really feeling like the Black girl that was only like 20 of us in a majority, Asian, predominantly white school.
Mm-hmm.
We kind of came together in a common bond. And so I think that grew that strength of me in terms of building my characters, that I just didn't want to be viewed as a Black woman. And even though I talk a lot that this genre needs to be inclusive, right? To bring these Black characters into this world, because we all exist and we all have to somehow get along, whether it's cohesively or, kind of rubbing together, but passing each other's paths. But I wanted to bring together that kind of cohesiveness because I experienced it. I also went through some things not a lot of people want to talk about, like depression and feeling isolated, because I did things that were out of the norm, or I loved things that were not normal in the Black community, like reading fantasy books, or like I'd rather sit down and read than go out and have a smoke, or go out and have a party hardy kind of attitude, or I played basketball. I was an avid basketball player, and these were the things that I wasn't typically. I didn't feel accepted, and so writing about characters who have to go through these flaws to be accepted kind of helped as well. So
So would it be fair to say that your writing was a coping mechanism for you?
it was definitely a coping mechanism. I started off with poetry. As a matter of fact, that's how I met, I believe, someone related to you. I was at a park, and he heard me speaking my spoken word, and he called over a homeless person, and he says, "What do you think of this poem?" And I started spitting, falling, 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 falling under their spells, falling under repercussions I couldn't even get so well, that kind of thing. And he was like, he had tears in his eyes. I said, actually, wow. And it made me so moved because I was so introverted. I would write, but I wasn't articulate, or I couldn't express myself in front of people. And so just
Okay, now
that
you know that since you started this, you have to go there. Go ahead and spit the rest of it. We want to hear what you do.
well, in some of this poem, I kind of forgot it, so I'm just going to be a little bit, because this was years and years and years ago. But
Come on, Gloria. We know you got flow, so go wherever you go.
Hit it.
Oh, well, I had a dream that I could slam dunk. People looked in awe. I was the baddest under the arm, around the back basketball player that ever set foot on a basketball. I what you call hot dogs and Danish pastries, and people looked in awe and said, "Oh my God, she could be better than Chris Brown." Yeah. So before I could put it in the basket, sing in the hoop and say, "Face your eye and don't mess with me," I woke up. So that's a little bit of my little basketball thing, but
What's your
that's what
favorite and why? I said, what's your favorite piece and why?
My favorite piece, in terms of poetry, is all over the place. The I think that was my favorite because I grew up as a basketball player, and my love for basketball was just really deep, and that kind of expressed who I was. Like, I was this baddest girl, but nobody really accepted that because I was female. But I was just who I was, and I was really stuck in a work. Believe it or not, even though I could really, well, I felt I could play, and I was getting trophies and on all tournaments. I had a coach who was racially profiling me, and she would sit me on the bench. And when we would lose, she put me in, and we'd get up ahead, and then she would take me out. And one of my counselors told me, he said he wished that he had known that was what was going on in my world, because he would have probably intervened. But he said that was the reason why he became a coach, was so that wouldn't happen to other young girls. So it kind of really affected me and how I viewed. So I was just pushing forward, and that's what I do in my books. I don't take no for an answer. Some people say they want to write. They have the desire to write, but they may even put a pen to paper, or ink, or to font to the typewriter or whatever it is, but they never go further. And
remember, this woman's name is Desire for Fire. So
right.
she's not playing.
And I kind of just really felt like nothing could really stop me at that point, you know. But it took other people to encourage me, because you can always be the naysayer yourself, your own saying, no, I can't do this. You get your loudest voice in your head of what you can and what you can't do. And I think you are your own power. You empower yourself sometimes. You have to embolden yourself sometimes, because the negativity normally doesn't come from your outside. It really
Mhm.
comes sometimes from how strong you are on the inside. And you can always tell yourself, no, I can't do that. I can't do that. That's too scary. But believe it or not, you can really do, it's cliche, you can really do what your desire is. And that's where that desire for fire came from. And it came from actually being able to not only articulate it, not only write it down, but try to get it out there to others, and let them know that, hey, you too can do this. And one of the things I did was, as my journey started, I was creating these female characters, and I realized that they were badasses. Can you say that on the radio?
Yes,
But
you
I
can.
wanted them to be badasses, but they didn't even know it. You know what I'm saying? Something like that. And it had to be other outside influences to say, hey, yeah, you can do this. Because in their mind, it was like, oh, I'm just typical. I'm normal. I'm whatever. I can't do this. And so it's almost like you need a village, to create that superhero, that person that you can be. All these cliches about you still, it takes a village, that you need your outside forces, and sometimes you really do, because the
Mhm.
things that you can talk yourself out of, you'd be amazed. So that's
Yeah.
kind of where I started creating these characters that, um, as you can see, that are strong, they're exciting, they have flaws, and they lean a lot on others, which isn't a weakness, because it brings their strengths to the forefront.
Now,
So,
Gloria, you talked about the village, the tribe,
mhm.
helping to lift you up and strengthen you and to give you courage and confidence. But was there ever a point where you were really in a dark spot and the writing itself was your village?
Well, I went through a bout of depression when I was in my early 20s. And no matter what I did, it felt like it wasn't enough. So I was really on that low, not suicidal, but I could say it was kind of like I wouldn't eat. I wouldn't, and all I had was my write or my poetry. And that was like my talking to myself. It was like that positive self talk method. You know what I'm saying?
Hmm.
So when you're writing and you're using whatever skills you have, or journaling, and I think even therapists, they bring that up, that why don't you write it down, why don't you talk to
Hmm.
yourself and tell
Hmm.
yourself what's really going on. And you find that um, you are stronger, or you can become stronger, just learning more about yourself, because people think they know themselves and they really
Right,
don't, right?
right.
And but I was in a bad place. I don't know who isn't. Get Some people are just positive all the time, but even
Hmm.
those positive people have places that are dark. That's that yin and that yang. And
Yes.
it's just how they transverse through the darkness. Mine was writing. I mean, I have over 9 books, and like I use this program called Grammarly, and I think it says I've written 394 million words, or some sort of
Wow.
wild word. Like I'm pretty sure I'm top. Grammarly should be sending me a check because because I have never written so much, but that's me as a writer. That's where I get my
Hmm.
love. That's where I get my energy. That's what I want to do. It's a profession. I hope I'm entertaining. I hope that, like right now, Cheryl, I'm trying to do this comic book series for Black characters
Hmm.
from the Kyandra saga, which was a fantasy character. And I started a Kickstarter, and I hope everybody's listening will go to my Kickstarter page. But you can go to my website, which is fantasy-arthur.com. Really
Hmm.
easy. And everything on there about me, if you want to read up some of my characters. I am going to share later on a couple of my book covers, guys. I love my books. I love my
Perfect.
characters, but
So,
so
so Gloria, first things first. I mean, I got to congratulate you, and it's really owed to you for the work you've done because you are an innovator. You crossed some barriers. You really, went right through them and went to an area that was not available. But you saw that already, like way back when, that there
yeah.
was a need, there was not enough. But a lot of people would wait for someone to do that. You didn't. You took action, and I think that's the other part. I mean, you mentioned something about you were going through your own thing and so on and so forth. But that's also for you, and
Mhm.
you even articulated the best when you said doesn't matter how positive you are, you might go through bad things in your life. Everybody has that. But
Right.
that's the story of a lot of success stories, right? It's just a matter of like you have to go through things in battle, but you did your thing. You were not just like, oh, okay, well, I can't. There's nothing about it. This life, that's how the world is, and we're gonna just settle for it. You didn't settle. You were one of the few, and maybe there are plenty of people out there, but not enough.
Pioneers.
Exactly that
Pioneers.
are taken to a different line, to the different road, and really bringing something new to. And then your formula is that you're expressing through writing, but through these characters. And by the way, they're the heroes of the stories. You're the hero of your own story. and
Thank
Absolutely.
you.
you, well,
Right.
you are. I mean, you are because yes, you are sending a message through a book and
She's
and
my
a movie.
Shiro.
There we go.
Thank you.
But again, it is Black History Month, and you know what?
Mhm.
You are owed a very great congratulations here, and success is yours. And I think there are plenty of successes out there, and I think this month will highlight quite a few. And we will be playing actually a lot of shows that we've had with a lot of guests on this month. But really, your thing is unique because you took almost a challenge. And you're like you're competing in a world that was not really meant, I guess, for what you do, right? Like fantasy wise and stuff. And that's a question I have. Like, why is it that you mentioned something about like the Black community and so on and so forth was not really something that was for the community, like being in fantasy and writing
I,
fantasy and
I,
all that.
I guess it's because we're so caught up in the real and the now. Life is so like
Good point.
you're faced with like where I grew up in the big area. I grew up in the Fillmore district, and right across the street was the projects. We were in a kind of up and coming kind of a townhome kind of like upgrade of the projects, but then you find yourself still having to walk through that community. And I
Mhm.
think when you go through that kind of experience where and then I went to an all black school. And then from that all black school, it was two blacks that went to an almost all Asian, all white school. And, so I was kind of turned over into a cultural difference that not only was encouraging because you would think that you would face a lot of racial profiling there because of that difference of the but it wasn't. It was more about like a camaraderie, and that camaraderie didn't go, it surpassed color. It went to like, oh man, you had to go through a lot to get here. You had to go through these tests. And it was almost like we came together because we were the smart kids in the block, but we weren't kind of like accepted. So we
Right.
had that other outside force that kind of, even though I did in that same school face racism, like what I told you, my basketball coach had done to me. I also had the backing of almost everybody in terms of our class, being that camaraderie. To this day, we get together. Our class reunions are huge, in terms of the comeback towards it. And on Facebook, is that community that keeps us grounded. And as a Black woman, when you're growing up in that type of community and you've been there and you know that what others are facing, I don't blame the Black community that they're not really reading the genre of fantasy because they're so focused on what I gotta get my next, I gotta get my next meal, or I gotta learn how to get past this neighborhood where I know they fight in this block, so I gotta hide behind a bush until this person passes me by, and who hasn't experienced in certain neighborhoods things like that. So to sit back and
I'd
have the
like to,
luxury of reading a book,
yeah,
you,
that
you know what I'm saying? So I
that
don't,
part.
yeah,
I'd like to address that
Yeah.
mm,
because that is an area for the Black community, particularly right now, that is problematic. I mean, it's not just the Black community. This is kind of worldwide. We're in this anti-intellectual stage where education and reading and all of that is being pushed aside. They've taken cursive writing out of the schools.
Yes, that's funny.
Education is being pushed aside, and being a nerd is not a good thing these days. And yet, that reading is such an avenue for anybody who is feeling downtrodden, who's feeling trapped, who's feeling like they don't have resources.
It's such
Within
an
a
outlet.
book is
Yes.
an entire rich world that can expand your horizons. Not only that, it can help to put you in touch with your own feelings, and it can identify that there are others out there who not only feel like you do, but who have overcome like you have.
Yeah. And these stories, although they're like take place in like I would attribute some of these stories to like if you watch Lord of the Rings, there she's is that time frame, that sword
Mhm.
and magical time frame of fantasy. And in my paranormal world, it kind of goes even further out. That was my mature read. It's about black vampires, but it also includes other races. So I'm
Mhm.
trying to be inclusive in all that I write.
Mhm.
But there are stories of family. There's stories of being torn apart. There's stories about the journey. So it's more than just, let me pick up a book. I want to entertain. I think these are stories that can go to movies. I think these are stories that can go to comics, that can reach people. I haven't done the ebook, not the ebooks. I do have ebooks, but I haven't done the audible books yet. If
Right.
people just don't have the time to read, they can listen. So that's my next journey in this book, trying to get together. But I do invite people to just pick up a book and take a moment and read, because it does relax you. It does put you
Mhm.
in a certain mood. You're more applicable to feelings, right? Because we get kind of cold, we get kind of blocked off. We get kind of narrow minded. All we have to do is go work. We have to do this, but you have to take some leisure time. TV kind of drives that, but when you pick up a book, I'm sorry, it's nothing like going into a world that's and submerge yourself in that story. And now I'm going to
It
always
allows
try
you to
to
be part of
find.
it.
Yeah, I'm always going to try. I'm a writer, so of course I'm going to try to sell you to pick up a book and read. But
Right.
but it's more. I mean, I'm living proof. That there's more. I came from picking up that book and reading the story, and now look what I'm doing. I'm saying this inspired me, and now I'm doing the same thing because this is what I felt, and this is how I strived, and this is how I survived, and this is what I come to. And it's never too late to write your own story, no matter what it is. I chose fantasy. I chose paranormal. I do Vela short stories. I have a whole short story little. If you can't just read, like if you're one of the person, no, I can't read a 500-page book, but I have stories that go 8 pages, many of them
Did you
in my
say
short
8 pages?
eight, eight. Some are 12, some are
Wow.
15,
Okay. So
but they're
these are
just
short. These are really short
really
stories.
short stories, but they're inclined in a little book. So,
Right.
like, this is
So
really
no
this
excuse to
this
not
yeah,
read
it's
because
this
you
short,
have
but
time to read.
yeah, they're really short. But I also created a journal where it's just blank pages inside, and you can pick up this journal. I wanted this to be like if somebody was a mother and wanted their children for an outlet. It has a picture of a black, you can't really see it, but a black girl. And here, write down what you feel. And I am affirmations in it, like I am strong, I am
Mhm.
beautiful, I am, and
Talking
because
about I am affirmations. Have
yeah.
you seen the affirmations that Snoop Dogg does?
No, I haven't seen it, but I'm gonna look it up
Oh,
right
you got to go and check out the Snoop Dogg
okay.
affirmations. Way to start your day. And when you go to check out the Snoop Dogg affirmations, post your information there so Snoop Dogg knows you're out there.
All right, I will. Thank you for that. Yeah. Hurricane, any?
Gloria, I just wanted to say a couple of things. One is, and by the way, doctor, you hit a very hard point there about the fact that we're losing the reading piece of it today. I
Yes.
think that that is an art that's. I mean, I grew up reading books. As a matter of fact, I lived with a book. I mean, I literally ate while I was I was reading a book. That's just how I grew up when I was a kid. And today it's the opposite. I mean, I fight with my kids all the time. Like
Hmm.
you guys don't do anything. They finish school, they come in and they gaming. That's it, or doing something, but they're or chatting. They're not really reading the books, and it's not like a lack of books available to them. It's not, and that's actually a problem going forward. So to your point, Gloria. Now you haven't, for example, given done audio, and maybe that's almost a solution to some of these problems that we have going forward. At least people
Mhm,
can listen to these things and
mhm.
get and absorb the language and the style and all that. At least they have something to actually really. I mean, it's one thing to read it visually, but at least if you can listen to it, audiobooks do have an actual value to them. I would suggest. I mean, there are AI applications that literally you put in your scripts and they will convert it into audio for you. So
Mhm.
we can talk offline about maybe some things that you can do to get there. But that is a
Absolutely.
problem. That is a
Uh-huh.
problem going forward because I don't know if everybody today is really inclined to picking up a book really in the new generation. I'm not seeing that, and it's a
Yeah.
problem. And I think for our audiences watching
It
right now,
it
yep.
it
Go
is a
ahead.
problem in actually a lot of ways. And again, we cover all topics, but this is a health related show. And
Mhm,
when we talk about reading and not actually reading physically reading, picking up a book and
Hmm.
reading stimulates so many different parts of our brain and causes the left brain and the right brain to communicate because we're using our imagination. There's a physicality
mhm.
that is involved in it, the eyes are involved in the movement. And when you're reading, you create a very real world within your head, and it
Right.
triggers the emotions and the feelings. You become very much immersed in it. There's a physicality to it that I think is important for our health.
And
That
there's
being said,
yeah.
even if we're not going to read, the audiobooks are a nice second. And the reason I say that is because the audiobooks still allow the imagination process. It doesn't involve the physicality, but it
Mm.
still allows the imagination process. The minute we click over and we start watching television or movies, it becomes video. The imagination portion
E
gets taken out of it because you're
You're
being
right.
shown the images. You're not creating.
Even in reading and writing, and this book goes both for reading and writing, is
Mhm.
that I think and mentally it reduces your stress, your
Yep.
anxiety. If you're
Absolutely.
depressed, you're no longer depressed because you're immersed in something else. You know what I'm
That's
saying?
all.
So it really is all these other intricate details that assist you as you go through whatever you're going through, whatever pain you're fighting through, whatever mental stressors you're going through. Reading has always replaced, it's like a replacement. It's not a fix all. It never will be unless it's in a self improvement book, which those help as well. Affirmations, they help. The Bible helps. I mean, just reading the Bible helps. But if you don't read or if you don't allow yourself that luxury, I think you're missing out. You're depriving yourself of something that's really wonderful to your spirit. It's not well, it has to me. It's really helped me. So I can only speak from experience that the place that I am now, I would have never been without these wonderful stories, without confirmations and affirmations, and the Bible being there, learning to learn those stories. That was your first storyteller, right?
Greatest story
God.
ever told, they call it.
Yeah, those are your first storytellers.
Yes.
But now, no way in the world am I a prophet, but I am a storyteller. You know,
Well,
and
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Now, we talked about the writing
mhm,
as a positive health aspect. I mean, the reading as a positive health aspect, but I really would like to emphasize that the writing itself is a positive health aspect. Again, because there is a physicality to it. And as we're writing, we're exercising those fine motor movements. We're thinking thoughts, language, translating it over. Again, the left and the right brain are communicating, and you get development. Plus, I would assume this extends to everybody else. I know that it definitely applies to me. If I am going through and I am writing, as you said, Gloria, it doesn't necessarily remove the problem, but in some ways it does fix the problem because it allows me to work through a solution. And it doesn't make everything fine and happy. Sometimes as I'm writing, the tears are flowing because it's helping me to go through and work through. So I think that there is a definite mental health coping mechanism that goes there when you embark upon a writing journey.
People who are fearful of expressing themselves to others, now you have another outlet where you can pick up a journal. You have children who may not can express themselves through a parent or an adult or another sibling, but they can definitely pick up their own journal and open up a page and what's going on in their world, and feel like for once in a lifetime there's no judgment, there's no repercussions. You can write what you feel, um, express yourself to the fullest, and this is a reminder that you were brave enough to do it,
Mm-hmm.
and that's journaling. You know what I'm saying? Someone said that a true healer is one who heals themselves first, so that others can benefit from that. Because when you're available to others through that, then you've helped someone. You um, you've impacted someone, and I want my stories to impact people. Like, wow, I can, I cannot stress it enough. Like, does the world need another hero? And I'm like, hell yeah, we need more heroes. But
Mm-hmm.
my heroes are not um, my heroes are not um, easy. They're not.
Mm-hmm.
They go through a lot. You know.
But they're necessary heroes, and you are a shiro through your writing. You are a healer,
Mhm.
and that is a magnificent thing.
I just want everyone to know that that you can pick up a book. You can say, when you say I'm not a reader, I don't read. Some stories you won't get connected to, and then that's just the way it is. But there is something out there for you. Instead of watching a TV show, try putting an hour of reading into your life, or try, even for your children, take the video game, even though they'll cry and scream and fuss and fight, but you never know what you might get out of it if you put something in front of them. Okay, if you don't want to read, then write. You know what I'm saying? Write me something, or you know what I'm
Right.
saying? Or, for the quiet child, that you can't get to express themselves. There's all kind of arts and outlets. Writing was it for me. Writing poetry was it for me from 16 on. I just happen to have this world of imagination in my head, these stories in my head, that actually became, if you wish, onto paper. It was such a struggle. Those who said I couldn't versus the few that believed that, yeah, you can do it. There's somebody that'll read that story. And as I have over 15 years now writing experience, but in the beginning it was a piece of crap too. The story
Okay,
was good.
let's talk about that. Let's
Yeah.
talk about that. As we're going through our struggles and we're feeling like, like we're a piece of
Hmm.
crap,
Hmm.
and we find something like the writing to work with, there's growth in that. How do you feel now? I mean, you went through the struggle. Your writing reflects the struggle. You said it started out as crap and now it's magnificent. How do you feel now as you look back on your earlier writings? What does that do for you?
Well, I still don't do the gag reflex when I read my first book, because I really feel that the story is good, right? It's just you have to prove on the writing. You have to
Yes.
want to be able to put in the work. Anything you do that you want to perfect or that you love, you will put in the work. Whether it's bodybuilding or cooking or whatever, you're just not going to throw it together and expect a miracle. You do have to work at it. And I've joined critique groups, who look at my stuff, and tell me, hey, this is, we noticed this, and this may not, you might not connect to the reader this way. I've had self-help. I've done YouTube videos, anything that I can to drive me to be better at my art, at my craft, because you want to take pride in it. And in my writing, I want to take pride in it. My ideas are all over the place. I have so many books yet to write, but just having new audiences, having new readers, that's something I wish for daily. You have to have a little bit of an ego, and you have to let that ego go sometimes, because no matter what people feel about you as a writer, they got something from it. And that's all you hope, like, oh, this is a little bit too descriptive, or this is, like my mature read. I was my first time doing a mature for that mature audience in my paranormal series, but I'm so proud of it. It's really real, right? And it goes across several taboos, but I'm very, very happy with it. Another thing is, now that we were talking about what will take people's interest, is back in the day, I remember when I was younger picking up a comic book. Now I've read like my brother-in-law, he had like boxes and boxes of comic books, and my eyes just lit up because it was Archie. Half of these people don't even know who Archie was, and Conan the Barbarian, and all these comic books. And Spider-Man turned out to be my favorite, so he's all over in my head about this hero. Because he was just a regular kid that came out and tried to do better, and I think that kind of resonated with me. But I read all these comic books, and now I'm looking. I'm like, there wasn't that really many Black comic books. Characters. There was Storm, of course, but you can name them on your 10 fingers, right?
Right.
So now
Storm's the only one I remember.
So that's why I kind of initiated this Kickstarter. I have 45 days to go. If there's 30,000 people out there and I can get $1, I will meet my goal. So I'm really, really hoping that there's someone who's really feeling that they want to see that next Black comic book hero, and go to my Kickstarter page and fund this project and help me get there. Because this comic book is
$1. She's just asking for $1, people. So we can all turn out $1.
Yeah, then I'm sure you got more than 30,000 listeners, so I will make my goal. I'm going to get there regardless. But that's my mindset, that this comic book was meant to happen. Only because that's what there are a lot of comic book readers out there. It's just that you don't really, you just go, there's nothing really out there for us. There really isn't. For in the skin I'm in. And there's a few, I've looked online and Facebook, there's a few comic book writers out there. I'd like to commend them, for trying to go Black. And but there's another hero out there. There is. The world needs them, and we can create them. And there will be people that read them, write it and they will read.
Now, some people would argue that the world isn't going to read about a Black comic book hero. What would your response to that be?
I would say there's not a soul out there who's read a comic book that would say that, because they're going to pick it up. And
right. And I mean, we all know that Wakanda just rocked the world. So.
Yeah. There's manga readers out there. There's a whole world of readers out there. Yeah. We don't, the world is so into the TV series and the Netflix series and all that. But I think that if we create it, they'll read it, Yeah.
And I think comics are still huge. I'm here in Sacramento, and they just had a Comic-Con here.
Yes.
And
yes.
There's always some kind of com here in Sacramento. But I mean, they're elaborate costumes, and a couple of
just people who want to cosplay. Just people who want to cosplay Cassandra, right? Yeah, I wish I could cosplayer. Cosplayer
is huge right now. Cosplay is huge right now.
Yes. But just I think if you have the courage to write and to put it out there, there's always, you'll find a reader. They may come out of it feeling some kind of way, but at least they came out of it feeling some kind of way. That's always a writer's goal, is to get that feeling.
And Gloria, just for our listeners out there who have no clue what we're talking about when we say cosplay. Can you tell them what cosplay looks like, what it is?
So let's say, for instance, you wanted to bring to life Wonder Woman, and you would just dress up like Wonder Woman, and that's cosplay. Or if you wanted to be Spider-Man, and you come in full outfit looking like Spider-Man, or other favorite characters in the Avengers world. People cosplay all the Avengers, all the X-Men characters. If you can just go on and on, if
All
they
the
could
any
create
kind of
it,
cartoon
yeah,
character that's out
yeah,
there. And,
yeah,
and for
and
those of
even
you who are
even TV
laughing your
series,
butts off and saying people are delusional
yeah,
doing this, it is big money,
it's fun
and
to
there
do.
are grown folk
Grown
just
people,
like
yeah,
us that are
yeah.
out there
Black
connecting with
Panther,
their inner child,
exactly,
connecting with
doing
their
their
inner
inner
child, and
whatever, right?
connecting
It
with their
ain't just
superhero.
Halloween.
Yep, their inner superhero is being connected with,
Yeah,
and
and it's
everybody
beautiful to
loves the
see.
masquerade.
Yeah, it's beautiful to see. And you see like Star Wars, that's cosplaying when
Yep,
you see them in the
yep,
Darth Vader and the stormtroopers.
Troopers.
Now, I was a
yeah,
Star
that's
Wars
true.
person too. You know what I'm saying? I
Uh-huh.
remember in 1977, I'm a little kind of going way back, me sitting in the
Yeah,
theater in Northtown, in San
yeah,
Francisco on the big screen. It was so dramatic. And,
yeah.
anybody that loves being that experience of the big screen, when you watch Star Wars on the big screen, it was really an effect on you. It made an effect on you. So,
And I think the benefit of it is, again, that whole mental health thing. It
mm,
allows us
storytelling.
to be people other than who we are. It allows us to identify with parts of ourselves that we might not ordinarily express.
Right.
So it increases our breadth.
It does. I couldn't express like my writing, how it saved me in so many ways. My writing, my heartache, going through experiences of lost love, and
Mhm.
being able to write it down, jet it down, and get it out there. And I did a little, my desire for fire, my little poetry speak of expressing that. And that outlet itself, not only verbally, but just writing those feelings down is such a healing. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
It's closure. You may not get closure in love, but if you write, and when you're writing and you're able to let it out, you do get closure. Take for
Mhm.
someone from experience.
Mhm.
Losing my mom. As a matter of fact, I became a songwriter. I wrote a song. You guys can find me on what is it, SoundCloud, under Desire
Mhm.
for
Yes.
Fire. You have to put a little asterisk because someone stole my Desire for Fire on SoundCloud. I have it everywhere else. You'll find me Desire for Fire, the number 4, everywhere, but not on SoundCloud. You have to put a little asterisk in front of Desire for Fire. But if you
Okay.
find me, there's spoken word. You'll find my spoken word pieces there. Um, I pretty much did all my poetry there in written
Mhm.
on SoundCloud. So if you're interested and you have a SoundCloud account, if not, you can download the app and asterisk Desire for Fire. And there's a song on there called Butterfly, and my cousin sung, and I wrote the words and the music because I
Mhm.
dabble in piano too.
Mhm.
Actually, I dabble in a little bit of everything and master nothing but writing. I'll put it that way. but,
And
but
that's all
yeah,
good.
it's all good. But the song was a reflection of my loss when my mother passed away in 2018, and I wrote it down. It was such a release of. It was closure. She was in her 90s and she had lived a full life. It was still hard to say goodbye, but when I hear that song, it's more of a wow, wow. That's how I felt. That's how I let it out. And so you'll find that writing can do that as well. Just give you
And it's it,
peace.
it's a very, I encourage you to go and listen to it. It is a very beautiful song. And I forgot how long we've known each other, Gloria,
Yeah.
because I remember you going through that. And I
Yeah.
remember you posting and going and listening
I think it's been
to.
14 years, Dr. Cheryl. At
I
least
can't believe it's
14
been that
years.
long. I
Yes.
can't believe it's been that long. Time
Yes.
flies.
Yeah.
So, Gloria, it is Black History Month.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us which Black history person you identify most with, and which one, if you were given the opportunity, you would like to sit down and have a conversation with, and why?
Um, wow, it's our first Black president, and Michelle Obama. God, they're so inspirational. But I remember the joy on my mom's face when he got elected. Like
Mhm.
it's not a we arrived moment, because there were always people like Colin Powell, even though he was more Republican or more on another, side of the Black struggle. It's almost like the intelligence of the president, his contributions. Michelle Obama's just, yeah, I'm a Black woman and I'm proud of it. And she didn't let anything deter her from representation of who she
Mhm.
was as a Black woman
Mhm.
versus what was expected of her in terms
Yes.
of the norm. So if I would, and of course there's also like God, there's like Oprah, and then there's actresses that as you guys were able to express yourself, um, be on top, know that you went through something, because not none of them have not gone through something and survived the backlash of being Black, but being a person of power. You know what I'm
Mm.
saying?
Mhm.
Being a person who's influential to the community, being someone who others listen to, and influence them specifically. Being that positive voice in a lot of negativity that surrounds our culture. Um, I just want people to realize that we're so diverse, and we can write whatever we want. Um, and we should be able to write whatever we want without fear of repercussions of how could you write that? Like how can you write fantasy? When there's so much else out there to write about. Well, that's
Do
my
you get pushback on your erotic fantasy?
yes, I do. I did it because it was a challenge and someone dared me, you
Mhm.
know, and I called them out in the their name is now in the dedication. I said, just because you
Oh,
dared
okay. So
me,
tell us, Dish. We want to hear.
I said, because you dared me, I'm writing this. And I have been working on it forever. I didn't know if I wanted to put it out there. I just thought I would write it and give it to them and say, here you go. But I love the
Okay, go ahead and
story.
put them on blast, girl.
But I love the story. And I was like, wow, she's such a badass. She's really she's all right. Now you will find that most of my characters are not only um, these they have to go through things, but they have a few lovers that they go through. Okay, so
Mhm.
they're
Mhm.
they're not um, they're not set in like you're expected to have this narrow mindedness, you know, because there's a need. And that's how I look at my characters. Wherever the need is, because I need more than just one person to support me. I'm kind of saying like, I'm there. I'm this
So it's not a unidimensional happily ever after kind of
right,
scenario.
exactly. There isn't some of them don't end very happily, but they end
Mhm.
strongly. You know what I'm saying? They
Mhm.
they they um they tell the story, and they tell the story, and I think of keeping it 100. You know.
And that's real. That's real
Hmm.
because that's how life goes.
Hmm.
Sometimes there's a happy ending and sometimes there's not, and we grow
Yeah.
regardless.
Right, right. I'm very proud of the characters I create, because I don't think they're one dimensional.
Mhm.
There's so much that makes up the characters, and they go through so much. Some cry, and then someone told me, I remember someone said, "God, your character cries." I said, "Yeah, she does, but she goes through a lot. I think the
Yeah.
tears make her strong, and she is stronger because of it. That kind of thing. Yeah."
You're
Because I
stronger because
cry. I cry too. Sorry, I do.
yeah, yeah,
But I
and
think I'm
you're stronger
stronger
because
now.
of your character.
Yeah, yeah.
So Gloria, again, we talked about, you mentioned about you're writing fantasy and pan and roll, right? And
Hmm.
and and by the way, those are just the environment that you use as the for the stage for those
Mhm.
characters and the stories. At the end of the day, I mean, the core story is actually really the message. It's that action. It's whatever these heroes are going through in their life.
Right.
But the environment that you create is just that fantasy world where, like, you immerse yourself into it, which you mentioned earlier about the idea of writing. When you write, you get into that visual, or at least when you read the book,
Yeah, you
you
get
get into that.
immersed.
And you really, I remember me personally, like writing, like reading the book, and
Hmm.
I was younger, and my mom would be like, "Hey, stop for you to do this." Like, I don't even hear her. I'm like so immersed,
So
like
immersed.
she like three times, four times, like, "Oh, you're cold,"
Yeah.
and
Right.
but you're really into the story. But
Yeah.
and it also creates your fantasy mode. I mean,
Boy,
your
you know what?
brain.
You just gave me a visual, Hurricane. I can't wait till they got those movie goggles now, right?
I
I can't
know.
wait
Right.
to listen to the story and we actually see the story developing as our mind creates these pictures. Wouldn't that be really
Right.
cool?
Oh,
I'm
that
crazy like
I
that.
think you need to run with that. I think you need to run with that. Gloria gets to patent that
It,
idea.
it is real, and you can actually do it. By the way, I looked into
Yeah,
it, and you could
yeah,
create your own visual for whatever stories you have. And
yeah.
as a matter of fact, people, that's what meta, concept is.
Yeah,
Right.
the meta world,
Right.
right? The
Yeah,
metaverse,
you
right?
you can
Yeah.
you can create that vision. I mean, you mentioned Star Wars, Lord of the Rings,
Yeah.
same
Now this
concept.
this
They live
do
that.
either of you find that kind of a frightening thing though, in terms of when we can start creating and living in a meta world, will people choose not to live in the real world because they can create what they want to in the meta world? And I
So
see
that's the
that
blue
being a
pill or
very
the red
addicting
pill? Is that what
experience.
you're saying?
It is controversial already as it is. I mean, there were a few movies that actually depicted that idea where, like, I think
Yeah.
Surrogate was one, and there are a few of them where you live in this fake world, and you kind of like almost let go from the real world.
Yeah, because your real world is
Right.
so harsh, right?
Well,
Right.
exactly, fantasy, right? You live in that world. Like, that's what, like, I'm
Yeah.
I'm enjoying this world. The other one sucks. Why? So I just moved to this one. But it creates that, and to your point, a lot of people choose the type of reading that they do because that makes
Yeah.
them live the life they want, or at least they
Right.
see themselves in that
Exactly.
hero or that character, and they live that life. I mean, like, they become them. I mean, I remember, like you mentioned Star Wars and stuff. As soon as I watched, as like you, I watched
Yeah.
them in the theater in the early late 70s, and I'm coming up with a fake sword and I'm waving, I'm doing my little, saber thing going on there.
Are you staying away from the water because of
My
Jaws,
lightsabers.
right?
Right, right, right.
But you
I can
live that
see that
fantasy.
having tremendous health applications, though, for like people who are victims of accidents and have
Mhm.
physical disabilities that disallow them from doing things, or even for people who are mentally challenged and may not be able to participate fully in the
Mhm.
world. They can participate fully in the metaverse, and so it opens up a whole new world for them.
Yes.
Right,
There's
right.
certainly medicine, education. There's all kind of areas where this will be implemented, and
Mhm.
it is already like in place. As a matter of fact,
Right. Oh, yeah.
I did a research. It costs about 10,000 to actually deliver your own meta monthly. I mean, obviously, it's
Right.
you got to have some backing for that. But if someone
Right.
has an idea, you can do that. I wanted also to just touch bit on something that you talked about briefly earlier, Doctor, and I think Gloria, you kind of alluded
Mhm.
to, is the ability to creative mind, like you talked about, how it helps mentally. Well,
Mhm.
so we have that as a fact in psychiatry. A lot of uh, doctors will use writing, or, like, to kids or whoever, write your stuff, and so you can visualize what's going on in your mind. And a lot of times, sometimes you've noted people notice things that in diaries and whatever that could reflect what's going on really in those minds of their family members, and eventually they can even save their lives and whatever, or at least identify what's going on with them. Even in
Absolutely.
business, I mean, you have to
Mhm.
write your business plan. If you have an idea, you write it down. It's all that. I
Right.
mean, we need to be more into that mode. Like, you can't possibly have an idea and not write it down. You'll forget about it. You'll write it down
Mhm.
as soon as you start. It starts just expanding. Like, now you write more and more and more and more, and now it becomes alive. And that's actually the challenge that we have today. Like, I don't see a lot of that creativity in the writing mode. But
Right.
but but historically, I mean, everything we owe today's world is from what people wrote in centuries before us, right? I mean,
Mhm.
you mentioned the
Yeah,
Bible, but
yeah.
there's science books, there's math books, there's literature, poetry over the centuries in multiple cultures and around the world. That is actually the heritage that got us to this world. I mean, talking about Black History Month, I mean, there are
Mhm.
books and there are authors and folks that actually wrote stuff from early on, and those things are still in play today. And because of those, there's a lot of opportunity and a lot of information available to us. And
Right.
one more thing, Gloria, is that I love also the idea that you said earlier. You kind of tried the publishing with others, didn't work, and I love what you did. You did exactly what any innovative person would do, is to actually go and do their own.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
When
Just don't
things don't
take
work
no.
out, don't take no for an answer. You
Yeah.
make it
Yeah.
happen. Yeah.
Exactly.
So again, I just
Exactly.
wanted to make those 3 points. But I mean, awesome stuff. You're the hit today.
Gloria, one of the things that a lot of people do, and particularly in the African American community, or even in other communities, third world communities, places where there may not be so much wealth, and a
Mhm.
lot of times we allow ourselves to be stopped by lack. But you didn't do that. What was your driving force that allowed you to say, okay, publishing could cost a lot of money, but I'm not going to stop here. I am going to find my
Mhm.
own way. What was the driving force?
Um, the fact that my characters needed to be an outlet, that they needed to be shown to the world, that I knew these characters were something that I wanted to share with the world,
Hmm.
and that they really have a story to tell, and I have stories to tell. And I think so that not only drive, because as a spoken word artist, I think the experience of being in that park and saying that poem and having that gentleman react the way he did, because this was something from the heart, that was like how I felt, and I wrote it, and then I expressed it to someone, and they reacted so organically, tears streaming down his face. And then I think your brother told me, "See, that's who you are," and that kind of opened up my introverted world into saying someone else could need this, someone else should hear this, someone else can benefit from this, and that's what, like, for people who have stories to tell, don't be afraid to tell them, because someone can actually benefit from it, someone can smile from it, cry from it, be motivated by it, say, well, that sure ain't going to be me, but
Right,
it will, in terms of like, oh, I won't go down that path because now I know,
right,
but there's
right.
that, now there's something visual. There's something that's linking them to a story that will be with them. Hopefully, it inspires them. Hopefully, it just motivates them to do something. Well, I can do this too. Or they're saying, well,
Right.
yeah, she writes a
Right.
book. It might be good, but I can do better. Okay, well, show me better. Or
And,
someone
and
who's,
and every one of us has a story inside
yeah,
of us. And even if that story gets told and it only benefits one person,
person, right?
what an impact we make.
Wow, I think that's my desire right there. It was what fueled me to continue to write, was seeing the reaction, the visceral reaction of someone who, I created this. This came from inside me. No
Mhm.
idea is actually original, but the
Right,
story is original. That's what makes, because
right.
everybody tells black stories about black vampires. There's more than one black vampire, trust me. You know what I'm saying? But my story is my story. There's more than one Kyandra, but well, there's not one more than one Kyandra's Kyandra. But I'm just saying, these heroes that can be created, they're all around us, but that story is unique, and I want people to read the uniqueness of that story. And that's why I write. That's why I write black.
And,
That's
and,
why
and I'm
I'm
gonna
never afraid to
give
say I
a
write black characters. Before it's like, well, why do you have to include that they're black? And I'm like, why not? I'm black, right? I mean, I kind of like, hey, I'm here in living color. And yes, I write black characters, but I think my story is universal, that anyone can sit down and read the book, whether you're black, white, Chinese, Japanese, whatever that you race that you, or in the color and the skin that you're in, can read this story. And not only will you realize that, hey, this is not just about a black character, this is about a hero character, a character that could easily be you or me. You know what I'm saying? So that's kind of why it's so important to me to get it out there and to let people know why I write, and that I do write Black. I'm sorry, I can't even apologize for it. I'm
Why
not
are you
apologizing.
apologizing
I'm
for
not
that?
You
There is no
shouldn't.
sorry in there. No, no, no. Take that out of your
Yeah,
vocabulary. There
yeah,
is no sorry when
non-apologetic.
you write
Yeah,
Black.
yeah.
Gloria, there's characters of all worlds, and so why not? It's that's how you see it, and it should be a good
Hmm.
enough number of these characters available where people can relate to. And to your point, they don't have to be black, to actually relate to the
Hmm.
story and to the because
Yeah,
that's what it is. We are always conditioned to every other aspect of life, and why not? We need to diversify. I think that is a beautiful thing to have. So no apologies needed. You're doing your
no
thing.
apologies, girl. No
Yeah,
apologies.
yeah. Well, I really appreciate you guys. It was just such a humbling moment to realize that, we could talk about my story, because I feel my story is important, and
It is.
it's, it's, I'm always going to express the fact that I write, um, that desire in me to write is something that I'm so proud of. A sense of pride to have a book in front and say, "Hey, I wrote this." Um, it's a sense of pride, and I don't want to feel like I need to be humble about it, because it's such a big deal, But
Right.
there's humbleness in it. There's humbleness in being recognizing that you were gifted with the gift to
Yes.
tell a story, right?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah,
Absolutely. Now,
yeah.
Gloria, again, this is a health related show, and the last few episodes, we have been talking about mental health because, right now the world is having such mental health challenges. So, if you can just give us a few takeaway points that our audience can use in terms of using writing and reading to help them to cope with whatever issues they may be addressing as
Mhm.
they're making their way through life. Share those with us, please.
Okay, so look at it this way. If you're an individual who has a mental issue, or someone that has a mental issue,
Which we
and
all do.
and we all have something at some point or another, whether it be depression, or whatever. Writing and reading can do this. It can improve your mood. It can heal you, in terms of your spirituality, depending on what you're reading. You can recover from sadness. It's like a revival of the mind, right? It reduces stress, anxiety, depression. When you're focusing on what you're writing, it gives you that outlet, that relief. There's so many benefits, that focus on the mental and healing of the mentality of where you are in that moment. If you just give an opportunity to open a book and read a book, or to write down your feelings through a journal, or giving somebody that outlet to express themselves. Because if you hold it in, it just tightens up inside you. You feel these you can be sick even if you hold expression in.
Yeah.
If you're forever keeping your mouth closed, if you're ever not able to voice how you truly feel, just imagine you've done that before, where you kept it in because you don't want to ruffle the waves, and there's a person that's just going to say negative to you. You can always feel free in your process of release by just writing, um, journaling, picking up a book and escaping for a little bit. So that's my best advice in terms of how that ties in to where you can get relief, because you can. I'm a living example, living proof.
And for all of those out there who are dealing with cancer or any other chronic inflammatory disease, put a pen to a paper and release.
Hmm.
It will help you in your healing journey. Put that pen to the paper. And Gloria has beautifully outlined some of the benefits that you will receive from a health standpoint. Gloria, It has been amazing having you. We've
Thank
enjoyed
you.
you. Can you take us out with another piece of your poetry? Do you have a piece that you'd like to share?
Um, I don't even know if I remember anything. um, so I'm going to try to do the following. It'll be a short little version of it.
Okay.
Falling, 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 falling under your spell, falling under a simple deduction that even a blind man could tell that I had been pushed over a mountain and shoved over a cliff and forced over a wall. I was falling. And so that's kind of like,
I
um,
feel it. I feel it.
yeah.
Well, thank you so much for joining us, and thank you out there in the audience for joining us and sharing in Gloria's experience. We want you to share further in her experience. Go and tag in with her. Put that dollar in so we can bring this character to life.
So my
Uh,
Kickstarter, Miss Cheryl, is you can go to my www.fantasy-arthur.com. It's really simple. Fantasy-arthur.com. And I have my Kickstarter link there. I have all my book links there. I don't know if I have a connection to my SoundCloud, but you can see what I'm doing on Pinterest. It has my Desire for Fires Twitter handle. Just go check me out on
didn't do that right.
www.fantasy-arthur.com. Thank you, Miss Cheryl. Thank you, Hurricane.
If I can get this right this time.
Yeah. If you say fantasy-arthur, and that's the part of it.com.
There we go. There. Now we've got the link in the chat as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let me
Thank you.
just
That's it.
My first attempt was fraught with
let-
typos.
yeah, give it a second. Just let it run, and people can see it. It will be also on the actual description of the show. So
Thank you. Thank you.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. And thank you for sharing your gift, your energy, and your power with us. You are definitely a Black History superhero.
Thank you.
And shout out to all the rest of you Black History superheroes out there and superheroes out there. Shout out to our superhero Hurricane H, who is bringing us this platform.
Much
And I
love.
have to tell you, I love Hurricane H. You know, he's
He's
our
actually
show
awesome, isn't he?
he
thank you,
is
thank you.
awesome. I mean, he's obviously an interviewer
Yeah.
extraordinaire, but the production work that he does to bring these, not just this show, but a multitude of shows. This is an entire network that Hurricane has, and it's positive, it's informative, it's fun. We get to see Hurricane do all sorts of silly things, and we have fun with it. If you haven't seen our profile,
There you go. That's it. That was
Yeah.
all of us. Woo-hoo.
I was already there.
All right, let's do it. Let's do it. Here we go.
let's
Here we
do
go.
it.
Here we go.
Wait,
That's
okay.
it.
And
Work
me
it,
being
baby.
the nerd, I'm the one that's off.
Gotta have some fun.
Hurricane, I was the one that was off, not you.
Oh, listen,
I started on, but then I was off. I don't.
we patient. We can go again until we get in the rhythm. That's all
Yeah.
good.
There we go. Which way are we going first?
We go right,
Right?
left, right.
There we go. We got it.
left. All right, here we go.
Oh,
There you go.
Yay.
Uh-oh. Oh, it's all right.
People who know me
Right.
say I'm so typical because I am the one always off.
Live, needs a little bit of fun. It's part of what we need to do. You got to get a little mental break, and you got to smile, you got to laugh it out. I
Yeah.
mean, we all got to go through things. And by the way, Doc, thank you so much for
Thank you,
for
guys.
for what you just said, the words about the network. As again, it was an idea 3 years ago, literally 3 years now. We're gonna start celebrations, and it started with just bringing positivity to the world. I mean, there's plenty out there, but I realize that there's not enough, to kind of, I guess in one place. And so I just started doing this, and I started my own shows. Then about a year and a half, I think almost 2 years now, I got my first interview with Dr. Cheryl BryantBruce, and then we hit it off, and then she decided to bring me onto her show. It was just supposed to be on the network, and they said, hey, I'd like you to be on. And there we are here, and we've had so many great guests, and I'm learning a lot. I think we're sharing a lot of value, and we're helping one person at a time. That's actually valuable over the years. that's going to add up to a lot, if not months, weeks, and so on and so forth. And there's great work out there to be done. So so the same thing, Doctor. Thank you for the work you're doing, and for just this is phenomenal,
Thank
and
you.
I hope we touch lives. And Gloria, keep up your hero hat on, and make it work. Keep those books coming
Yes,
through.
yes. Happy Black History Month to everyone. Yes. Thank you. I appreciate you guys so much. Thank you so much for having me. Desire for fire, right? That's my desires right
Absolutely.
All right.
Desire for Fire.
now.
Go out, check her out, check out her websites, put $1.
Yes.
And Gloria, thank you
On my
for being
Kickstarter, let's
you.
get my Black comics out there, right? So I can't wait.
You,
Yeah.
you know what they say, a dollar and a dream, right? This
Right.
this dollar can make the dream.
It
It
Literally, I
really
mean,
can, literally.
and
Yeah.
we definitely are gonna support you with that,
Thank
and
you.
I'll be throwing in my dollar, and
Okay.
I'll certainly be encouraging others. And then once that Kickstarter has kicked off and our character is out
And you
there,
get your
we'll
autographed copy of your book, right? Or
bring
like,
you back, and we'll talk about the journey.
yes, yes. We're speaking to fruition.
There you
Yes.
go.
and
There you
let's make that audio. Let's make that meta in the future. You never know. I mean, let's take it to
absolutely.
next. And by the way, that's the question. I know we're about to close the show, but is there any potential of a scripted movie or movie? I mean, these things
Um,
do need to
I
come on.
tried Netflix and a producer before COVID, and it fell through because of the COVID thing, and his contacts fell through. But I'm willing. I'm open. If I'm already have it partially scripted for the Kayandra saga. I had it in an animated version of what it would look like animated. I've gone so deeply into this these characters and the world is just ready to be brought to life. So if there's any directors out there that feel like that we don't have enough representation, this would be a perfect script for them. They
Okay,
can contact
I'm
me.
gonna throw my hat in, and I'm gonna throw Hurricane's hat in.
I'm in already. Here, hold on.
If we
Hold on.
get
I'm gonna do it
this
literally.
action movie going, Hurricane and I, we want to be in there kicking ass with the rest of
Well, my mind is there that I'm a little songwriter. I've already have like 4 songs ready for someone for my screenplay. So,
Yep,
hey,
yep.
let's do this.
Well, I've seen Hurricane kicking
Mhm.
the mess out of that bag.
Oh yes. Well, by the way, I do have few contacts as well. I mean, I'm gonna
Okay.
reach out to someone. Then again, you never know. You pursue something, you
Yes,
just throw in a name, you throw in an idea. Whatever comes
absolutely.
out of it comes out of it. But I think those characters coming to life can change also.
Oh
A
man, this
dynamic.
story is just
And we'll
meant
help you
to be
however
out
we
there.
can.
Yeah,
We will
yeah.
help you however we can. We are here to support you.
Wonderful. I am so blessed regardless, but the fact that now able to outreach and have this outlet for people to know that I'm out there. I just feel so just happy, I just feel so
Aw.
thrilled and very humbled and very thankful. Thank you so much.
Well,
Thank
the
you.
honor is
Yeah.
all ours.
Yes,
Yeah.
ma'am.
Yes.
So, on that note, we are going to wrap up this episode of Chatters That Matters. Any last words, Hurricane?
No, just by the way, I did have the where you can watch this. I mean, you can watch it literally on the EMBC TV network. That's just the website, and there's different channels. It's available on Facebook, YouTube, Vimeo, Twitch. LinkedIn's gonna replay. Even in worldwide, it's all over the place, and almost every podcast it will actually air as well. So this is going at Roku TV, Fire TV, and soon to be also Samsung or like what do you call it, Apple TV. So it's all over. So hey, listen, information is out there. Please take it, sync it, share it. We just want to hear about it from you, and we'll continue doing the work for you. That's it.
Bye bye,
So
everyone. Thank
it.
you.
All
That's
right.
it for us for another episode of Chatters That Matters. Let's talk about it. As always, we want you to hit that like button, hit that share button, and tell your friends all about it. Come back and join us for the next episode of Let's Talk About It. Bye-bye.
Bye,
Bye.
everyone.